All right, guys, so this is really cool. I interview Warren Carlyle, the founder of Octonation, the world's largest octopus fan club. You can follow him on Instagram and Facebook. Click the links down below to follow him there. In this video, he's going to give us 8 interesting octopuses and facts about each one. Here's the challenge. As he's talking, I'm going to be memorizing these 8 octopuses and the facts about them. I want you to do the same. Listen to the interview and see how many of the 8 octopuses you can remember and how much of the facts about each. When he gets done giving us the facts on the octopuses, I want you to push pause on this and see how many you get. And then I will say how many that I remember, as well as give you tips on how to memorize these facts. I've even had a PDF designed, and you can download this. I'll tell you how once we get through this. But listen to the interview. Remember as much of this as you can. It's really cool.
About it. What's the first octopus that we need to know about?
Okay, so the first one is going to be called the Vulcan octopus. This one also has a nickname where it's called the hot water volcano octopus. And what's really interesting about this one is that it's adjusted to living its life where seawater meets magma. So they casually hang out around 700-degree hydrothermal vents. Because they live
700 degrees Fahrenheit.
700 degree. They're just casually hanging around. They're not in the 700 degrees, but they're around 700 degrees of those hydrothermal vents. And because they live towards the very bottom of the ocean, they're bone white. So they lack chromatophores, which are the color changing cells that help octopus change colors. And they're blind because there really isn't much need for eyes down there when there's pitch black, at the ocean. And because they don't really need it, and because of the pressure, most likely, they've evolved without an ink sac. So they're bone white, they're blind, and they don't have an ink sac. So they're just this really interesting, fascinating creature, and it kind of looks like Casper the Ghost, honestly.
So what does octopuses use ink sac for? Is that their defense mechanism?
Yeah, so they use it to kind of spray at their predators to kind of like distract them or disorient them because it kind of gets into their senses, and they're like, oh, what's going on? And then it takes a harder time for them to be like, okay, what's going on? Where is this octopus? And by that time, the octopus has jetted away. But this octopus doesn't really need that down there at the very bottom of the ocean.
Oh wow! So that's the Vulcan, hot water volcano, 700 degrees Fahrenheit, no ink sac, and blind.
Yep.
Okay, right, cool. Tell us about the number 2 octopus.
So the next one is it's called the paper nautilus. Paper nautilus, yeah, and it's actually an octopus. But the female paper nautilus, she gets her name. It's a 2-part nickname, right? So they have paper and then you have nautilus, because 2 of her arms secrete a paper thin egg casing. From 2 of her arms, and she secretes this. It's like calcite. And nautilus, essentially, the second part means sailor. And so essentially, the paper comes from that egg casing that she can secrete out of her arms, and she secretes it throughout her life, and it forms this enclosure over her whole entire body. And it's an egg casing because when she's ready for that period of her life, she can keep her eggs in there. But another interesting thing about it is the male version of this species, full grown, is the size of a marble. so there's a lot of, it's called sexual dimorphism, where you have a ginormous, a female and then a smaller male. But it's funny because the male, we've actually seen him hitchhiking on seahorses, riding jellyfish. Sometimes he's even inside salps. But his whole entire purpose for a living is to find that female. And what he does is he breaks off his mating arm, which is the third arm from the right. When he gives it to the female, and she'll keep it in her egg casing, or she'll keep it for when she's ready to fertilize her eggs. And so it's a very interesting relationship. But the biggest thing to learn about this species, and what's the most fascinating, is the fact that she secretes this egg casing, this shell almost, that she lives in. which is like really, really fascinating when you think about it.
No, that is. So it's called a paper nautilus. These two arms, they secrete a paper egg shell for the eggs, a case for the eggs. And the male is the size of a marble, and he cuts off his reproductive arm and gives it to the woman. Okay, this is crazy. All right, I got it. So I'm loving this. What's the next one?
Okay, the next one's really fascinating too. It's the blank. I'm giving you all the fascinating ones. Is the blanket octopus. So this species is literally like, imagine like a floating rainbow through the ocean. So she has this iridescent color and with this 6-foot cape that she can deploy when she wants to seem big and threatening, or she can bring back in close to her body when she wants to make a faster getaway. What's fascinating about her, she spends her whole entire life floating in the open ocean. She doesn't touch the ground. She just like literally the same place where like turtles live and hang out. She's just swimming her whole entire life suspended in water. And she even, when she wants to lay eggs, she forms sponge-like rods that she has naturally in her body. And that's what she attaches the eggs to. And like I said, she just swims with those eggs, and her whole entire life cycle is swimming through that water column. But the most identifying feature with her is this long, iridescent, beautiful cape that follows behind her.
So it's called a blanket octopus,
Mm-hmm.
and a 6 foot long. Did you say red cape, or did I just?
It's like iridescent, so it's like this pearly purple. I mean, when you see a video of this, you're gonna freak out.
Okay, so 6 foot red cape. It never touches the bottom of the ocean.
Yep.
Okay. All right. How about octopus number 4?
So that one's the hairy octopus, and as you can imagine, there's very little that's known about the species. Just that it has really unique skin. The skin is called papillae. But the skin, it forms this hair-like protrusions. And really what's fascinating about this is it looks like a hair model in some shampoo commercial, because its eyes have even been observed kind of glistening. And it's hair, like there's video footage of it, and it's the hair, the skin or the hair-like protrusion, or the skin, it's just like blowing in the water column. And it's really hard to find. It's only 2 inches long, and it's considered the holy grail of octopus finds. So if an underwater, scuba diver, whatever finds it, they better play the lottery, because it's really, really hard to spot this creature.
2 inch long octopus.
Yep.
So see, that's something right there that should just blow everybody's mind, because I think everybody thinks octopuses have to be these big creatures.
No.
But they could be
there's over 300 different species, and depending on where the ocean, some are really big, some are really small, but they all have, like I said, these unique adaptive skill sets that allow them in their environment to thrive. So the hairy octopus in this instance, because it's 2 inches and because of where it lives, it's evolved to literally blend in and look like algae. So it's so hard to find, because the way it moves with the water currents, the way the water currents blow the hair around, you can't tell whether that's algae because it's 2 inches, or whether that's a moving, living, breathing thing. But come to find out, it's the hairy octopus.
Wow. Well, okay, so that's awesome. So, okay, that's number 4. So how about number 5?
Okay, we're gonna get lethal with this one. Okay. So this one's called the blue-lined octopus. And so the blue-lined is a type of blue ring octopus. The only difference here is that instead of having rings all over its arms and body, it has these iridescent blue lines cascading down its head and its body that pulsate. And why I say this octopus is lethal, because while all octopuses are venomous, the blue ring species, and this one, the blue-lined, have a venom that contains TTX, which is called tetrodotoxin, and even an unnoticeable bite from this species leads to respiratory paralysis and death within minutes. So if a human is bit by this species, they might not even know you literally go into like a paralyzed state, and you better get on a ventilator fast, because that's your only chance at surviving a bite like this.
Wow. And do you know how big these are?
It's the size of a golf ball.
The size of a golf ball.
They say one bite, or just like from one species, it could kill 26 adult humans. So that's how deadly this venom is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I don't want to make them seem like they're these bad creatures, because while they are very deadly, there's only been 3 recorded deaths in the past 100 years from this species. So like they've tested the venom. They know how deadly it is. You always see in places like Australia, and sometimes in Japan, they'll have these creatures on the news saying, hey, we're finding more cases of these blue-lined or blue-ringed octopuses on the beach. Make sure that you stay away from them. And so people that are in countries where these species exist, they definitely know about these critters. But here in the States, unless you follow Octonation, you're a fan of octopus, you don't really think about the blue-lined octopus or the blue-ringed octopus. So it's a really interesting, but also, like I said, very lethal, species.
So one question. So this is the blue-lined, is that right?
Yeah, it's the blue-lined, and you can tell, and you'll be able to see by the pictures in the video that the difference between the blue-lined and the blue-ringed is that the blue rings have rings, these iridescent blue rings all over their body, but the blue-lined, down their mantle, there's just these lines. And so this is a great opportunity to teach the difference. If you see the two, look at their mantle or their head area and see, are there lines or are there rings? There's 2 different types of species.
And if we see this one, it's going to be about the size of a golf ball.
Golf ball, yeah.
Okay, all right. Now, real quick question: Do octopuses have to have 8 legs to be called an octopus?
Yeah, I mean they do. I mean there's a species of octopus that's called the 7 arms, but even them they have this dwarf arm, so they really have 8. But yeah. So most species of octopus, I mean you're gonna have 8 arms for sure.
Okay.
And so they have arms. A lot of times people like to call them tentacles, but octopuses don't have tentacles. Octopuses have 8 arms. When people say tentacles, what they're doing is they're thinking about squid. So squid have 8 arms and 2 feeding tentacles. And I know this is more than you probably want to know, but they have 8 arms and 2 feeding tentacles. And the feeding tentacles are these 2 extensions that essentially have a lily pad at the end, and it's called a tentacular club. So on this tentacular club, they have suckers on them, and so they'll shoot them out. They'll grab food and they'll bring it into their beak. But octopuses, like I said, don't have those tentacular clubs. They just have 8 arms, which are still magnificent, but they're not tentacles. So that's a quick octopus fact.
No, that's good. Because I was wondering, because you said the size of a golf ball, the size of a marble, 2 inches. I'm like, they still have 8 arms, but they do. I guess spiders can be that small. Okay, so that was number 5. What is number 6?
6 is one of my favorite. It's called the sand octopus.
Okay.
And it's really interesting because sand octopus, they can't camouflage, but they're super clever. So how they've learned how to survive for hundreds of millions of years is when threatened, they'll shoot jets of water downward to create quicksand in their environment. And then what they do is they blast a foot underground. Wow. They create a ventilation shaft with one of their arms, and then they secrete a mucus down where their beak is, and they use that mucus to reinforce the walls around it so the sand doesn't cave in, and then they can just chill out underground to escape predators. But I have a video of that where you see it, where it's just, what it does is it blows up really big, and then it blasts underground, and then you can even see its arm, and it's just like creating this ventilation shaft so it can breathe, and then it secretes like mucus, like I said, to pack the walls, to almost make a predator-proof bunker to live in. So like I said, that's like another adaptive superpower that a species of octopus has learned how to do to thrive in their environment.
So this is called a sand octopus?
Sand octopus.
Sand octopus. It shoots air down, I guess would be? Is that what
it's like a jet. Like they use jet propulsion, an octopus does. So it'll bring in water in its mantle and then like forcefully push it out, and it's called jet propulsion. That's kind of how they move through the water. But instead of it doing that in the water column to shoot around and move place is it directs that strong stream of water straight into the ground so that it can make a hole and it blasts down into that ground. And I imagine they learned how to do that because, there wasn't really any need to camouflage when there's so much sand around. And so, while the other species died off, there had to have been, one that was just like, we have to figure something else out, guys.
Right.
This is not working for us. And so they learned how to do that. And it turned into this evolutionary thing where they don't change colors now. And now that's how they survive, is by that defense mechanism, blasting straight into the ground and burrowing.
Very cool. This is cool. The links are gonna be down in the description of this video to follow Octonation on Instagram and YouTube and all their social media. They got such cool videos that we're showing on here, so please follow them. So, what's number 7?
It is fun. It's a really fun species. It's called the coconut octopus, and I nicknamed this species the Kleptopus. Because to protect their vulnerable, squishy bodies from predators, they'll carry around different items to shield themselves from predators. And they do something called stilt walking. So, when you go to the grocery store and you want to get all the bags at the same time, and you're like, trying to get in, and you're like opening the door with like one of your arms or something like that. Well, imagine an octopus with no bones carrying discarded shells and half of a coconut, and they're all on stilts, and they're trying to carry all this stuff, and they're like slowly moving around. Well, octopuses, they have something called a hydrostatic skeleton. And so the same thing that our tongue, like the same way our tongue moves in our mouth and the way the elephant trunk moves, an octopus has a hydrostatic skeleton the same way, where they kind of have like these it's like this pressurized fluid in their bodies. And so they can flex their arms and create like this stilt, and they can carry things under it. And so it's just a really interesting thing. And when you see the video, it's just really fun because they kind of look like they're drunk or something, like coming home from the bar. But they have all of these items. And so as soon as a predator comes up to them, they'll whip around and they'll go into that half of that coconut shell, and they'll have a shield under them, and they'll completely close in and protect themselves against predators. And so, like I said, it's a fascinating species in the sense where they learned how to use tools to protect their bodies.
Okay, so let me get this straight. It's called the coconut octopus?
Yes.
And the coconut shell that it goes inside of is an actual coconut shell, or you're just using a metaphor?
No, it lives around environments where discarded coconut shells are plentiful. I guess they're in the water. There are other species that are similar to this one that do somewhat of the same thing. Like the veined octopus and stuff like that. Like I said, there's over 300 different species.
Yeah.
But the coconut octopus, it's nicknamed that because it finds discarded items like coconut shells. Okay. And there's even a video that I have, and I'll include it in the thing too, where you have one that has 2 halves of a coconut and it's rolling down a hill.
Okay.
And it's like a really funny thing. It's just they've learned to be like, okay, if I want to protect this vulnerable, squishy body of mine from predators, because their arms to predators are delicious. They're like a floating protein bar to their predators, and they're like, I need to find something and get something to protect this squishy body. And so you'll see them pull everything together, like shells or whatever, and just hunker down and try to ride out the predator, to get away from it.
Wow. All right. So this is great. I hate that we're on the last one, but we're on the last one. So what is the number 8 octopus?
This one I saved the most fascinating for last because we still don't know a lot about this species. It's called the warty octopus. Okay. And I have to bring the species up because it was featured on a Radio Lab podcast recently. And they might have the longest brooding period of any animal on Earth. And so I just want you to guess, and I want the people that are watching to guess, how long do you think that this octopus sits on her eggs for? Like that's called a brooding period for an octopus, where she's just on eggs. So how long do you think this brooding period is?
Well, I don't know. I guess humans don't sit on eggs, but that's 9 or 10 months. So I'll say 10 months.
4 years.
Wow.
4 years.
Wow. The warty octopus.
The warty octopus. So, I mean, I imagine, I mean, they live like in an area of the ocean that is like freezing. And so I guess life is different down there. Metabolism is different down there. But 4 years, they witnessed, and like I said, it's on that Radiolab podcast where they just kept diving down year after year. They saw her on her eggs. And it's an absolute mystery. Like, how does she not eat for that long? Because octopuses, when they're on their eggs, they don't eat. They starve to death. The last thing of a female octopus when she's done with her brooding period is she starves to death. Her purpose in life is fulfilled, and she doesn't eat. It's called senescence. But that's the warty octopus. She has the longest brooding period of any time, and obviously called the warty octopus because there's some characteristics of like warts on her skin.
Oh, so it's warty, like W-A-R-T.
Yeah, W-A-R-T-Y.
Okay.
It has a big fancy scientific name, and I might include that so people can like look up the really like scientific name next to it. But I'm calling them the nicknames for here just because I think it's easier than some big Latin long name. That might be another podcast.
No, I agree. Yeah, we might have to do this again. So, by the way, down in the description, I'm going to put links to all the videos that he's talking about and links to him. So all these cool videos are going to be in the description of this video. So you just gave us 8 octopuses. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So let me see how I did with remembering them. And then for the people watching at home, if you want to test yourself, push pause and see how many that you remember, write them down or something. But I'll just repeat them, and Warren will tell me how good that I did. So I believe the first one was the Vulcan, right?
Yep.
And the Vulcan lives near hot water, volcanoes, near 700 degree temperatures, not in them, but near them. This one is blind, kind of like, and it doesn't have an ink sac. Mm-hmm. And also, you said white or pale or something. No color.
Yeah, I say bone white.
Bone white. Okay. So the next one was the paper nautilus. And this one, the female version, has 2 arms, and out of those 2 arms, it secretes a casing, an egg around its eggs, a paper thin casing around the eggs. The male version of the paper nautilus is the size of a marble. He can ride around on seahorses, and when he's ready to mate, he will find himself a woman, a big woman. He likes ladies bigger than him, and he'll chop off his 3rd arm and give it to her, and she'll put it in the case when she's ready to fertilize these eggs. Okay. Now, the blanket octopus has got an iridescent color, which I didn't really know what iridescent was, but you explained it. And see, I'm just a normal, simple guy. It has a cape, an iridescent colored cape, and I think you said it was 6 feet long. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, up to 6 feet long. Yeah.
And this octopus doesn't touch the bottom of the ocean. It just floats around all the time. But the distinctive feature is this cape. Mm-hmm. The next one was the hairy octopus. And this one is about 2 inches long. It's got little hair like that and eyes that kind of make it look like a model, and can hide in algae. The next one was the blue-lined octopus, and it kind of has a pulsating head or something. Yeah.
Yeah, pulsating. Yeah, blue rings. Yeah, or pulsating blue lines.
Pulsating blue lines, and it's about the size of a golf ball. The venom that it has, if you want to call it venom, is that the right term?
Yep.
The venom that it has is strong enough to kill 26 humans, but fear not, it's only killed 3 in the last 100 years. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, so now we're on number 6, I believe, and that was the sand octopus.
Yep.
The sand octopus puts its arm down in the ground, shoots this pressure out, builds a little bunker, a fort, goes down in there and hides, and it protects itself that way. The coconut octopus will actually steal coconuts. You called it the klepto octopus, and it will steal these octopuses or whatever, pull itself up on stilts, and whenever it's ready to protect itself, it goes inside of the coconut shell and protects itself. And the last one that you gave us was the warty octopus, and this octopus will sit on her eggs for 4 years. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, so, all right, now, the real Cliff Notes version here on how I memorized this, I thought of something. The first thing you want to do whenever you're wanting to memorize anything is you need to think of an image or a location that reminds you of that. So I thought, what reminds me of an octopus? And because I have no base knowledge of an octopus, is really, this is not going to make any sense. But I thought of a skating rink that was near when I used to be a teenager. Why a skating rink? Because when you skate, you skate in the shape of a figure 8, right? And octopuses as so. This skating rink became my memory palace for octopuses. So as Warren told me about the octopuses, I just mentally visualized myself walking around this skating rink. The place where you get the skates, I had the paper nautilus. So I had paper there and maybe knots like on a rope. And then on the place where you sit down and you put on your skates, the bench, I imagine I was curling myself up in a blanket because it was the blanket octopus. And then I made it like a cape like that. So in other words, I visualized myself walking around this skating arena and I memorized. Now here's the deal. This is why I do this. Because every time I want to remember the facts about the octopus, I remember the skating rink. Then I walk around that skating rink and I remember, so I can always continually review it, and I will never use that skating rink for anything other than octopus. So guys, what I have done is I have created a PDF of cartoons that kind of give you an insight into what these images look like in my brain. You can kind of use it as a study guide for whenever you want to go back and maybe memorize these facts. If you're watching this on the Brain Athlete site, just click the downloads button and it's right there. The PDF is there. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the link down below to my Brain Athlete site and you will be able to get this PDF for free. I've set it up as a free course on my Brain Athlete site. Warren, why don't you tell everybody how to follow your fan club, how to stay in touch with you, and all the good stuff?
Yeah, so if you just want to go to octopusfanclub.com, I mean, I make it really easy. If you have Facebook, if you go to octopusfanclub.com, you can join a group full of the world's best underwater photographers, researchers, scientists. We're constantly updating new finds in there. If Instagram is more your up to speed for you, you can just find us at Octonation, where we have all of these videos and we're constantly profiling new discoveries, new species, new footage of species. It's just a really fun place. And so, yeah, definitely come hang out with us.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to put all the links that he just talked about in the description of this video. And if you liked this, give us a thumbs up. Give us a comment below. What is your favorite type of octopus that he just talked about? Or is there a type of octopus that you know about that we didn't talk about here? Tell us about that. And if you want to get my memory course on how to remember more, like I just memorized these 8 facts of an octopus, I'll put the link down below that. Black belt memory. You'll get a black belted memory like a black belt in karate. Warren, thank you so much. This was so awesome and interesting, and I enjoyed having you on.
Perfect. We'll chat soon.